Dear friends, dear colleagues, we will resume our work. We spoke about accumulation, and we should speak more about batteries. So what will be the next topic? It's the battery repository of the future. And I'm glad to see two guests, Pavel Podruh and Michal Klečka, who represent several companies. And they will be the ones to give us the information that will be relevant and usable to our individual consumers. We were talking about what energy should we choose, what battery we should choose. So they will tell us something about that. Good afternoon. We would like to extend our greetings to all those who are listening to us. I think that it is the right moment to pursue what those who spoke before us have told. It was the against Mr. Topolánek and Mr. Gabor and Mr. Fosek who spoke in favor of the renewables. So perhaps we could speak about some of the technical points. All those who spoke before us, the four guys, sort of agreed on four basic concepts, namely that our brutal dependence across Europe on gas showed to what extent our energy system was fragile. Whatever perspective we take, be it modern or conservative, the ultimate dependency always gives rise to huge problems, and that's what we are experiencing. And both sides of the scale or the spectrum seem to agree on that. And we also agreed that this is times an era where new energy sources are coming. We will call them renewables, we will call them temporary or intermittent sources. It can be small installations on the family houses' roofs, or it can be huge installations, plants or parks. Well, both are possible and both sides agreed on that. So these are the presumptions or where the further development of the energy market will go. And since we agree on that, it makes sense to speak about what it is that we installed, what in the context of the boosting of the renewables capacity, what we install in Europe. Oftentimes we don't speak about this perspective. We are all enthusiastic about the green energy, but not always can we see what the details are. And the devil is always hidden in the detail. So our presentation will be about the stationary repositories or containers, and since other speakers will also speak about that, we will focus on what is stationary, and we will focus on how the stationary repositories market looks like. So there is a basic unit which can be composed into modules. These can be used by households. Then they put them together in larger plants which can provide for a house of blocks of flats or industrial plants. And then there can be large capacity repositories which can be used for the leveling of some peaks. So the most elementary thing is the battery unit, and there are many types of them. And the entire market seems to be consolidating using the lithium technology. It can either be the cylindrical shape, or it can be the boxes as you see them on top, and there can be many other types. as you can see it. So this is the battery. These are the batteries, and the situation is quite stable. These are technologies which have been around for 30 years, and there are several features. Some of them are a bit explosive. They tend to explode, so there is a certain danger associated with them. Others are very stable, and there is nothing that could explode or nothing that could burn, but the other features, other characteristics are different, so they differ among themselves. Currently, the market seems to be preferring and consolidating around the LFP technology. So it's LiFePO or LiFePO4. They contain a minimum quantity of lithium as compared to others. They are fairly simple, and it is the king of the market of the batteries. There is no nickel, no cobalt, no manganese, so they are without these very expensive elements, but they only contain something that is less expensive with the exception of lithium. And it is stable, it does not explode, so you can never see any picture showing an explosion. They have a long service life. They are around since 25 to 30 years. They were put in operation around the year 95. So they really seem to be time-proven and quite stable. So LiFePO is the king of the stationary repositories, and some time ago Tesla announced they would shift to LiFePO4 batteries, and others will probably follow suit. So the market seems to agree that this will be the dominant type. One type rules them all. And it is an important message. If these huge industrial conglomerates declare their option and their preference for one type of the battery, then there must be something to it. So in all media articles we read about the new revolutionary battery technology. Even in Czechia there seems to be some kind of a revolutionary technology. However, the reality on the market does not reflect it. As I said before, the market seems to be inclined in favor of what's time-proven, and the new technologies will have a difficult situation. They will have to prove themselves substantially better, because otherwise the market is merciless. But there are new technologies, and there are strategies of large industrial plants, and once again the preferences go towards LiFePO4. So it is likely to stay there at least until 2030. Currently, about 90% of the world production of LiFePO4 batteries are produced in China. This is a comparison which can provoke a smile, but it's quite representative of the reality of today's world. You can see on the left the web page of the largest producer of the LiFePO4 in the Czech Republic, and I hope to see that there is somebody existing in the Czech Republic. And on the right you can see Warren Buffett with BYD, who is the second largest LiFePO4 in batteries in the world, in China. And then you can see that this is really a vertically integrated company that possesses the deposits, the extraction capacities. They have their own repositories, stationary repositories, and they are the biggest producer of or manufacturer of electrical vehicles.
Which is quite an interesting comparison in the level of sophistication of current producers of battery packs. I may have chosen quite an extreme example, but still. I will pass the floor now to Michal. It seemed indeed that you will speak forever, but if I'm out of breath, I will pass the floor back to you. So, taking the relay, Pavel spoke about an introduction to the question, to the topic of batteries, and I will take over by reducing this larger context to our company experiences. We started to import and produce batteries in 2008. Already at that time, in Europe and let alone in the Czech Republic, it was not possible to buy some advanced battery packs and use them. So when we mentioned about technology, depth of Europe, I would quantify it as something around 15 years or even more. What's the reason for that? In mid-20th century, all European companies transferred their manufacturing production to China with hope that it would be cheaper, and China not only did copy technologies, but they also advanced the technologies, so that today the batteries produced in China today cannot be produced in Europe in such a quantity and quality and at such a price. We are still speaking about lithium as a strategic raw material. You've seen that there is not so much lithium in the battery, something as 4% only. Therefore, it's not the dominant material, although the name is lithium battery. However, it is a strategic raw material, and currently the only way you can get it from is one place in Portugal. Also, they speak about Sinovac in the Czech Republic, but it was rather in the past. Now they do not speak about it further. If I make a parallel with the gas and electricity spoken about previously throughout the morning, I think that exactly the same development tends to happen in battery field, because new technology without accumulation cannot be executed. We have need of some longer-term accumulation, but also a daily accumulation. If there is wind, if it is a windy day, if there is a sunny day, in a couple of hours you have to store enormous quantity of energy for the night, for the next day, and you will not be able to with a lithium battery. The only battery you can count with is a lithium LFP battery. We shouldn't be surprised if in 10-year time we are in the same situation with batteries as we are now in terms of gas, being dependent on one single player that can maneuver us as it likes. My personal view is that concerning Russia and our dependence on it, it's the question of 10 more years. And China grows very rapidly in the meantime, and therefore it's even more dangerous, such a dependence. What we wanted to say in this slide, what you can see on the left, this small square, this is one single LFP packet or cell. We cannot use it alone. We must put it in a larger system. You can see this drawer system, and it can work only then. But not only positioning of the cell is needed, but also you have to equip it with more technologies such as wiring and other things. And there is another danger, not only in lithium, But there is a danger that we are not able to produce the cell itself, and we are not able to produce the drawer. We can do it, but it takes us 10 times more time, and it takes us a price 10 times higher, and it works much worse than if we import it from China. Solar boom we enjoy today, and thanks God for that. 90% of new installations in August this year, or in the course of the January-August period, 90,000 of installations happen according to CHES statistic. They have these batteries already, but these batteries look like that. There is a black drawer brought from China. Inside there are battery cells with a lot of electronics that makes the control functions, communication function, notifying the exchange, and so on and so forth. And usually it's connected to so-called cloud. You can see those screenshots on social media, how users boost themselves rightfully, how much energy they saved the day it was a sunny shine. So this is the cloud storage, and you probably presume where I'm aiming at. If today we are dependent on the cell, on the drawer, and on the cloud, and only a few companies operate that, seated in the countries I would not bet for, and I would not believe we will be the same confident towards them as in 10 years' time as today, sending them as much money as we do today. But this is not the only type. There are also large batteries which are installed for companies, not in the shape of drawers, but in the shape of some cupboards. If you look at that, this is a large storage. There are hundreds and hundreds of drawers with hundreds and hundreds of battery cells. There are sometimes several thousands, up to several dozens of thousands of cells with a highly sophisticated communication in between. There is, if you have ever seen a manual to a Chinese product you order through Express or some other provider, you can know what's the level, what's the quality of the manual. Usually it doesn't help you. You have to find out by yourself how it works. This is similar. You may be surprised what's the manual for such a large battery storage looks like. Although the storage costs hundreds of millions or several thousands of millions of dollars, you do not have anything clear that, you do not have block codes, you do not have any other further information that could guide you, and therefore if anything happens, if there is any break, you as a Czech or European consumer and user, there's not much you can do with it. Now we pass to the industrial level. Those large batteries may look like that. This is again nothing else than many drawers stocked in a very sophisticated way, and a European client paid for that, but has practically no control over it. It has theoretical, there are flows of energies in the cloud illustrated, but you have no direct means of control of such a device. If somebody cuts our gas supply, we've seen that we may somehow bypass it, substitute for it, although it costs us more. But I am not able to think what we would do if somebody from the other side of the planet would shut down all the batteries at one moment, or issues a command that the batteries have to discharge into the grid, or conversely they have to charge from the grid at the time we do not want that. So these are the questions we are examining, and a current consumer or user who doesn't need to understand it in details should not worry. I think that this is the responsibility of politicians, both on European and national levels, to be conscious of the strategic danger, to get lessons from energy crisis and not to repeat the same scenario for instance, battery crisis or for some other commodity crisis. This is a picture showing the drawer in details. You mostly have it at your home. We usually call it black box. You switch it. There is a lot of signals showing that it works inside. But if this black box in 5-year time, provided I avoid some dramatic scenario such as a terrorist attack, if there is just a common failure, there is suddenly a red signal signaling error, and you have no clue as to what is happening. The company that supplied you the thing may not exist anymore, or the error cannot be repaired because it's always easier not to correct, not to repair errors. And that's why we undertook a different approach, a different philosophy, meaning that this is not the way we want to follow. We rather prefer something we can trust and we have a good feeling from. And I am almost out of breath, so let's pass the floor to Pavel, who will tell you what was the result of our change of philosophy. And this end of our thinking and our presentation will be definitely positive. Last 5 minutes will be positive. As my colleague indicated, we started to embrace a new philosophy. Let us show a short video. And let me say that at the moment we realize these shortages, these shortcomings, together with Michal, of those black boxes. I was at the time building a self-sufficient house, and I realized I wouldn't like to have such a black box in my household, and I started to make a research what would be a positive alternative to it, whether there was anything I could use as a storage device in my own household. And that's what went up. This is a completely serviceable facility, completely a manageable device, although it may look rather rudimentary and not modern, but still the storage architecture is open, and me as a user, I can have an access to the very last cell at any time. If there is some break, I'm able to repair it with the nearest electrician living in a near village. I do not have to call into a help center for a repair of a closed architecture produced by a GWL company who may still operate but who may not be operating anymore in 5 years. So their instructions will definitely not be available in such a case, and therefore I want something as I did install finally. It's a completely open architecture, serviceable, manageable, repairable, and with that we try to, or we do manage to prolong the life, the life of the device. It's a very pragmatic, logical approach. And when we created such energy storage in my house, we made a certain agreement with Michal, and we established a company that is called Mvolt, and we decided we would concentrate on replacing those closed storage devices imported from China by these storages that may look more outdated, but they are much better controllable and sustainable in the practice.
This is a place in the town of Schumberg, and obviously we fill in more capacities. The entire concept is based on our predilection for European products with open architecture, and the only thing which we are missing now are good quality LFP battery cells from Europe, which we would like to use. But unfortunately, the reality is that the good quality battery cells can only be found in Asia, which means that, again, this is our appeal to all companies or to all those who attempt to increase our independence in Europe, is that we should use our own components, our own production, because it is a strategic issue. Cells can be recycled. This is a technology which is perfectly recyclable. Just very quickly, the LFP technology is getting consolidated on the market, and if Europe wants to keep up, it has to invest right now in lithium as raw material, as to the manufacturing of the battery cells, and they must beware of the sustainability. This is just the cherry on the cake. If you want to start straight away, there is a link for potential investors on our website, and you can use this, and I think that that would make sense in the context of the current political development and current political situation. Thank you, gentlemen, for this presentation. I think that it contained a lot of information, and it may have infirmed some of the myths. There will be yet another presentation on electromobility. Obviously, we often hear from the opponents of the electromobility who show those pictures where cars are on flame or they explode and so on. So it is good to hear that, for instance, Life Po 4 does not have this problem, and if it is used as a battery in cars, the risk won't be there. Well, I think that when the batteries were first put in operation, there was quite a haste, and the batteries which existed at that time were used. These were the batteries that were used in mobile phones or computers, and just to gain the time, to earn the time, this was used, but obviously it is not attractive for the users. If you count the number of burning petrol cars and lithium battery cars, then the first prevail hugely, but it is still an argument. I was wondering where such a battery can be used on top of all that we've been talking about. It works at home, but who are really your typical customers? And I have some questions from the public, so perhaps I will ask them later on. But tell me, from the B2B sector, do you have companies, do you have industries where people show interest? 99% of our clients are B2B. Our products are made here in Europe, and they are not competitive for the small investors, for the households. The supply chain is missing here in Europe, and whatever is produced in Europe is 3 or 4 times more expensive than the Chinese imports. But it's changing. The industrial consumer have different consumers have different requirements than households, of course, and they also realize that they need a longer guarantee and so on. And I think that industrial, but both industries and households realize that the reliability, the serviceability, and the ease of use is very important. Especially the industries obviously want the systems to be operational for 30 years, so they don't want to replace other equipment every 5 years or so. They need to have things which would be serviceable, and where the mean time before failures wouldn't be much shorter than for a lathe which is running on the energy. So the competitiveness is an issue. We would be happy if we could speak about a product which would be conceived for family houses, for households. Not for the time being, we are not yet there. The price level is much higher. But starting with 50 kilowatts or 100 kilowatts, then we do have such products. Thank you. I will try to paraphrase 2 questions. Do there exist any technologies of battery storage which could keep the power for, or reserve the power for more than 1 month? I don't know where there's logic of the question, because I thought that a battery is there in order to level out the input. I wonder what the question means. Perhaps it is somebody who wants to be independent of any supply for more than 1 month. It can be 1 or 2 months or 1 year, but I think that it was not meant how long can it last before you use it up. It is rather about the degradability if you don't use anything. I think that if you charge a battery cells, a battery, and you keep it without touching it, then it can last. It can lose some 5% of the power in 1 year, not more than that. Then there's a question why sorry, virtual batteries are not used more, but I don't know whether I understood properly because the question was too fast. There was a question whether, in case we are all equipped with PV panels, I think that if we have a distribution system, then it can relieve a battery. A physical battery is a part of the decentralized network, which should optimize the use of renewables. The virtual battery, I don't want to be naughty, but if we want to achieve the stable network, it is almost incompatible. The capacities are very small, and if you have sun or wind, then with a virtual battery it means that you have no use for your battery, and you may be looking for a potential buyer who would take the excess capacity of your battery or the excess power. But since most people around you are in the same situation, there will be excess of offer anyway. But what it can do is that there will be one huge battery for a village, and everybody will use it. As previously said, the stand-alone batteries I mean, the permission procedure for the installation of these is lagging behind for 5 years. I think that we will have to wait for that. Thank you, gentlemen.